about, because I did spend a lot of time in coming up with the gap bully strategy. And so we'll definitely talk about that because I saw quite a few of them today. That's why I'm picking to discuss that today. But we'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon. This is Ifan from the Strategic Day Trader, and this is your market wrap for June 19th, 2019. Market just closed here. Q's going to close 0.38 and SPY 0.21. Very, very sideways. You can see the market was kind of compressing for the FOMC to get out of the way there. And then once it did, a little bit of a shakeout and then moved higher. Coming into today, we were bullish. Bullish, meaning that sell-offs were viable. Okay, bullish on the market. Short-term, bullish on the market. Long-term as well. Okay, now what would have to happen for that to change? Underneath today's low, we will shift to a neutral bias. That means we'll have gotten a breakout failure. We'll see if we get more follow through the downside, and then it would be the next setup where we would be bearish. So on the immediate horizon here, underneath today's low, we'll shift to a neutral bias. That will be indicative of a breakout failure. We've seen that before from the FOMC. I believe that's what occurred here, right? So we tried to break out and then came in and didn't get follow through. So it's what we'll be watching for if this kind of rally gets followed through or not. If it doesn't, then we'll shift to a neutral bias, see what the next move is. So, right now, just going to remain bullish going into tomorrow, and then underneath today's low, that will be our line in the sand, okay? So underneath the low on the Qs and SPY. So this is a pretty decent looking hourly pullback. If we break below, I don't think that's bearish necessarily. I'd have to see a good follow through to the selling and then the next move. Monthly, weekly, still bullish pictures. Okay? All right. So what I wanted to talk about today is kind of the what we look for a lot of times in the way that we teach things is, okay, this is what the ideal would be when it's perfect. And then what you actually find is a lot of variation of that, one issue or another. And so we'll talk about kind of the different issues. Which ones are maybe the ones that really should keep you out, and then ones that maybe are still worth playing, okay? So let's start with this gap bully strategy, okay? And the gap bully strategy is we have a gap down, okay? Something gaps down, it breaks the support, breaks the immediate bars, previous bars low, and then recovers, okay? So this is the BFB from last week, okay? We played this last week, okay? And what I want to see is not only the reversal there, but I want to see that the larger time frame, the weekly, the monthly, are also bullish. So this was the weekly at the time, right? Running into that daily overlap, right? So you have a 20 MA pointing up, right? And what does the monthly look like? Monthly 20 MA pointing up, right? So that is pretty close to picture perfect what you want to see on the larger time frames. Okay, so monthly, easy, pointing up. Weekly, easy, doing a buy setup, also pointing up there. Okay, I think the best one, the one that really can go into the textbook there under the ideal gap bully would be this one here. See this one here, right? Broke the resistance and then reversed, all in the same. So the gap down, right? Longs thought, oh, I'm in trouble, I better get out. Shorts thought, yep, we got a nice one on our hands, and then quickly reverses. Longs got to get back in, shorts got to cover, and so that's why you get the follow through. Okay, so that BFB, very similar, and those are pretty nice. Now, I would say the next nicest one that we got would be the SABR today. Okay, SABR. Was this bullish on the daily 20 MA pointing up? Yes. Okay, it was bullish. What about the weekly? Weekly a little bit tougher, right? Weekly's been pointing down, but we have been moving up recently, and then the monthly is flat. Okay, so you can see the monthly tried to break down and then kind of coming back up into some resistance. So it's not as outright clear of a picture as the BFB, right? So this, right, I think is a lot easier to come to the conclusion that the long term is all pointing up, then something like the SABR. Okay, so let's go over here what the entry was. Entry on the SABR was just a breakout. Over this base, breakout for higher. I know some people played it short and it worked as well. For me, my preference is to play in the direction of the trend, and this was trending higher. One more thing about the SABR, I think that makes it a little bit more unique in comparison to the other ones we had today, is that there's a lot of shock value in this gap down. A lot of longs who have held it overnight from the last few days were looking at a loss right at the open, and there wasn't that much selling. So that tells you there wasn't really that much supply, but there was a good amount of demand. And, maybe some people who were looking to get in it thought they missed their chance, took this as their opportunity to get it on a discount. I don't know exactly the reason that it got bought, but we know that the gap got bullied, right, and gave I think this was somewhere around when it topped out 6 Rs, right? So that was pretty nice. On to something like the JBHT yesterday, right? Now, what about this one? Okay, JBHT. What has the daily been doing? It's been moving down. What has the weekly been doing? It's been moving down. What has the monthly been doing? Been moving down. 20 MA also pointing down, so it's broken the long-term trend. So something like the JBHT is kind of ideal in that that this is the one that you want to pass on, right? So even though, right, it meets our criteria, it gapped down, it gapped down breaking support, it broke through the resistance. Should we be looking for an entry when it sets up on this one? I would say no, and that's exactly what we talked about yesterday. You can see this tried to break out, didn't follow through, tried to do a pullback, also didn't follow through, right? So for me, on this one, the JBHT was not conflicting at all or tough to say, I'm not going to be a part of it. It doesn't have what I want as far as larger time frames. Easy pass. Okay, so the BFB, easy to play. JBHT, easy to pass. SABR, okay, there are definitely some good things about it. And then a little bit less clear, right, if the weekly is really working in our favor, because the weekly has been pointing down. Now we are trying to break that downtrend. But at the time when it's setting up here, you don't really know that it's going to run up all the way up to here, right? All right, so let's look at a couple more, and we'll just kind of do the same thing. Okay, here's the LZB. Gave this as a potential breakout here right in the morning around 10 o'clock here. You can see his basing broke out. And then also talked about it as a 15-minute buy setup here in the afternoon. So that was okay. Now, if we look at the daily here, we did definitely gap down and break the resistance. Okay, very nice follow through there on the WGO. What about the weekly here? Weekly, a little bit more sideways than anything, right? Pretty sideways. And monthly, the slightest of uptrends, right? Very, very slight. It's been crossing back and forth across the 20 MA for quite a while. Very, very sideways. So you can see that on something like this, if I say, well, only play something when the 20 MA is pointing up on the weekly, it's in an uptrend on the other time frames, this is clear, right? This is clear. On something like the LZB, it's not as clear. You have something a little bit more sideways. So did this work? Did this work out just fine? It sure did, right? So on something like this, okay, and you might expect that in a bullish market, right, which was our bias coming into today, bullish long-term, bullish short-term, that these are going to work a little bit better even if they're not problem-free, right? And let's take a look at one more, the WGO. I only gave one play to you at the coming out of lunch, and that was the WGO over this topping tail to be played for new highs. Now, what about the WGO? Weekly, right, is good. Weekly pointing up. We're doing a buy setup on the weekly. The weekly is bullish. The monthly, not so clear. A little bit more sideways, running into a previous place that the WGO was not able to hold and fell from. So you can see that, you know, it would be great if they all just line up perfectly, like the BFB or the LRN when it did the bully. But you're gonna get majority of things are gonna be something in between perfect and not good. So like the JBHT, this is in the category of, yeah, this is not good. I don't expect that, you know, shorts are gonna be in that much pain to cover, and I don't think longs are gonna be in all that much of a hurry to get in it because this just doesn't look good on the other time frames. Monthly is breaking down, weekly is in an all-out downtrend, just made lower lows. So, that's an easy pass. BFB, an easy play. And I would say for all the rest of these, LZB, SABR, and the WGO, are all variations of good but not perfect. Okay, so that's why it's really important to go over the plays every day, go over what's working, because if you just mimicked, you're saying, well, if it matches the textbook or scores a perfect score, we do have a scoring system for how to rank pullbacks, how to rate them, then you may not be that active every day. You may not even have plays every day, right? So especially in a more bullish environment, a lot of these are going to work a lot better as long as they're not just purely in a, going against the long-term trend on these gap bullies, right? And then pro gaps will be different. Gap berries are going to have the same kind of criteria. So say this JBHT had set up a gap berry instead, then that's good to be played, right? So I'm using all gap bullies today because I want to make sure we're really comparing apples to apples, right? But it does apply to gap berries as well. All right. So, I thought that these were all pretty nice today as far as what we got. The JBHT was the only one that and that was from yesterday. I thought, yeah, that's a pretty easy pass. Some of these today, I did pass on the LZB. So that one, I just wasn't sure. Daily was looking lower. Weekly was also not so sure, but the monthly was also pretty sideways. So I did pass on the LZB today. Did the LZB work just fine? Hard to argue with that wide range green bar, right? So that's going to happen too. Even if this JBHT had worked, it's just one of those things that, okay, I am aware of it. If it had worked, maybe these are working despite the long-term trend. If I see more of them that continue to work, then I'll look to adjust from there. So that's why I'm presenting you these, the LZB, the SABR, and the WGO, because these are working despite maybe some issues or some imperfections that they have, right? So important to know what is working, because you come in and you just try to replicate what's in the textbook, that may not be what is available to us, right? Or even working the best. All right. So, I go over these, the plays, the setups every day before the close. So, not only give them to you in the pre-market before or in the, at the open, some of them come up pre-market, but at the open when the gaps flip, and go over them again in the end of the day to see how they worked and how they followed through to help prepare us for the next day. Okay, so I know probably most people looking for a new room want to know that things are given ahead of time, which they are in this room, but also I think it's important to prepare for the next day, right? So that's something that we do before the close, especially if there's nothing to be played in like the final hour. I usually don't take a lot of trades in the final hour. So if that sounds like something you could benefit from, then definitely check out the link in the description. There is a promotion going on right now for a 1-month subscription at the lowest rate that it's ever been offered. It's not going to get any cheaper than that. So, you play one of these, WGO, SABR, and LZB, it'll more than take care of itself as far as the subscription price, subscription cost. So check it out. It will be running, I think, for just a short period of time. So it'd be something you want to maybe check out, take advantage of, and who knows, you might actually learn something to be able to apply to your own trading. So even after your subscription is over, you decide, yep, I'm ready to go back and be on my own. That kind of stuff, this kind of additional knowledge or approach to technical analysis can really make a big impact. All right, so I hope you did well today. If not, we will be back at it tomorrow and see what the market gives us. All right, have a good evening.